Today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I want to do an experiment. We haven't had our Sea Star very long, a few months is all. And so I've been envious of all these people that have thousands of exposures that they can stack in Cyril, and they make them look fabulous, and the detail is so good. And some of it is that they're probably just better at post processing than I am. But when you only have a few exposures, it's going to take a long time to gather enough to make it look good. And so I wanted to do an experiment because my brain is telling me, okay, if I have one exposure and the Sea Star takes that image of one exposure, that's one layer of light. And I understand that. Well, then it takes another exposure of the same exact area, and that's exposure number two, and it stacks it on top. So that's the concept, and I understand that concept. So when I first get my Sea Star, I don't have a lot of time to collect those exposures. But even if I did, my brain is saying, okay, well, the exposure I collect tomorrow night is virtually the same exposure that I collected last night. It's just a different day. I mean, there could be some factors that play in, like light and things, but under similar conditions, the exposure itself, that individual exposure, should be the same. So if all I have is one exposure, why couldn't I copy that exposure 1,000 times, and now I have 1,000 exposures to stack in Cyril or whatever software I want to do? Because then it's still stacking that same light from the one exposure. And so I wanted to do an experiment to see if it makes a difference, or if it would work, instead of spending hours and hours and days and months and possibly even years gathering exposures. If we can just gather what we're going to for a night and then duplicate those to where we have a larger amount of exposures. I hope that makes sense. So I've opened Cyril here. I have gone up here and set the home directory right up here. Whoops, sorry, I minimized it. We set the home, I'm clicking the wrong button. All right, home directory, and this is my NGC 7293 subs folder. And so I'm setting that one as my home directory. So I do have quite a few exposures here, but not the thousands that everyone else has. And so I've already tried this experiment before I recorded it, just so that I would know if it was worth making a video about. And so I've created the lights folder right here. Let me go to a different view so that's easier to see. This is the hard drive. I have an external hard drive, so it's this D drive. I created the lights folder, and then I created a lights 2 folder. In this lights folder, I want to put only the fit files that I have collected. And so I haven't done that yet. And so we're going to click Control F, and then up here in this search bar, we're going to type period FIT. And that's going to narrow down all of those files to the fit files. Then I'm going to select them all. Well, let's get rid of that one because we don't want a result file in there. Like I said, I've previously done this, so it's already got some of the files. I just didn't want to delete them and have a problem. So right here, we're going to copy all those files right up here. Then we hit this back button, and it takes us back to the folder without the search up in here. And then I'm going to go to this lights folder, and I'm going to paste them. All right, so we're going to copy those files, paste those fit files into here. I'm not going to actually do it because then I end up with all of these copies in here, as well as in here that I've made copies of. And so this is the folder with all those copies. And let me stretch this folder out. You'll see that it's copies a lot. So what I did is I started with 240 or so fit files. That's what was in my lights folder. And then when I went and wanted to copy those, I just selected them all with the Control A, and that highlights them all. And then Control C for copy, and then Control V for paste, all in the same folder. And what it does is it brings up these copy numbers. So this was the original file. This is the first copy. This is the second copy. And this is a copy of the copy. So it does rename them for you, but they're all fit files. So now you see I have 956 fit files that I can stack in Siril. And so what I did is I went into Siril, I set the subs folder or the home folder to that subs folder. And then I went in and I ran that scripts of the OSC pre-processing without DBF. So this is for people that have C stars, and all they get are the lights files. They don't get the darks, the bias, the frames, so this is a script. I've created a video about this script and how to use it. So it's obviously been installed in my Siril. I do explain that in that video, how to install that, where to get that scripts file to install in that previous video. So I'll link that. So now what I did for my experiment is I ran Siril, this script, on that lights folder, the very first one. This one that had only the TIFFs that existed and were taken off of my C star. So I ran that script in Siril, and it took about 25 minutes to run. Once you run it, you see all those files scrolling here, and then it creates that results file that is in Siril, and it's in alphabetical order, so it's down here at the bottom. So it created this one, this results file. And then I opened it in Siril. So just by going up here to open and open that results file. That previous video talks all about how to do that. So I don't want to go into big detail about that. So then what I did is I went back and I copied all of those files into that lights folder, but then I copied them so that I got all of these. So that first attempt, I used the 245 or so files, and now I'm going to do the exact same thing with 956 files. And so what I wanted to do is see the results. So I've just done a screenshot and pasted it into Word rather than run it again, because that first attempt with only the fit files from the C star took, I can't remember exactly, let's see, 17 minutes and 2 seconds, it tells me right here, to run. Well, the one with over 900 fit files took almost 3 hours to run the scripts. And so I didn't want to make that a video that long. And so I just did screenshots so that we can see the difference. So you do see, if I enlarge this a little bit, we did 214 images, because it did drop a few during that process, but this one, it used 214 images to create this results file right here. And I had turned on the auto stretch for this so that you can actually see what's there. Of course, we know the linear view is really what's saved, but the auto stretch gives us a preview of what's there. And that's all I really wanted to do, is see if stacking those copied fit files would actually work. And so then I did the same thing with those copies and those multiple things. Well, it doesn't look extremely different, but you can see now that it has stacked 856 of those images. It did drop, close to 100 of the files, but that's normal. That's what it does. It discards bad fit files so that they don't skew your final result. So this one is about 4 times the amount, or 3 more times the amount of fit files than what we did with the original files. This one, it took an hour and 52 minutes. So I guess just shy of 2 hours. I think I said 3. And that's what it looks like. So this is just that results file, and I've auto stretched it and turned off the little chain icon thing right here in the bottom so that it's not green. So it doesn't look extremely different, but I want to see if there's any difference. So I want to get these a little closer together. So this is them together. So you really can see a difference. This is much darker. This one is a lot lighter. The actual image itself is definitely darker in this one. So the summary of this experiment is that we can take our relatively few exposures and just copy them and make enough exposures that it does make a difference. I specifically use this target because it does contain different colors. It would do the same exact thing on a galaxy. Sometimes we image a galaxy and it just doesn't have a lot of fit files, and so we don't get a lot of detail, but we can definitely see more detail and color in the fit file. Let me see if I can shrink it down and get them on the same thing. So you can definitely see that this one is darker in the background. So it's stacked more of those dark files, and this is not quite as washed out. You can see it's a lot brighter around the red area, little greener. It's a little more washed out in this version. So that was a fun experiment. I imagine it would work even if you only had one exposure. If you copied that file 1,000 times, now you have 1,000 exposures to stack. So this was a fun experiment. I might try it on some galaxies because I have struggled getting enough fit files to make the galaxies really pop and show massive detail. And so it would be a fun one to try on galaxies too. So what are your thoughts? Is this cheating? I don't know. It's just a matter of time. I mean, is it any less cheating than sitting your sea star out all night while you sleep? I don't know. Some people, the hobby is all about getting outside and being cold and looking through an eyepiece, and that's totally fine. But if we're opting to use a sea star, we can use it to our advantage, and collecting just a few exposures, because we're fairly limited when we're imaging from home and there's street lights and houses and trees to dodge. It can take a long time to accumulate enough fit files to really stack and make a fabulous image. So this was a fun experiment. Tell me what you think. Is it cheating? Is it something that you would be willing to try? Or do you think it's fake astronomy? I don't know. What are your thoughts? Join us in our journey. We're just experimenting and trying different things as beginners and amateurs. And so we encourage you to come along with us on the journey and share your thoughts and input too. Thanks for joining.